Hi guys, what is going on, and welcome back to another video on Myth of Empires. So we've been pretty hyped for this game for at least a month or two now, and when the opportunity came up for me to get stuck into the alpha, I really couldn't wait to get to try it out. And even better, there's no NDA, so I can kind of share my experiences of it with you all. As you'd expect, as soon as you get into the game, you're going to get thrown right into the character creator. All the usual options you'd expect, including perhaps the slightly less usual option of an extremely chunky boy, which was a very tempting suggestion. From this, I was quite pleased to see that the server selection seems to be acting a lot more like Last Oasis. Rather than a list of different servers that you to select from, it acts a lot more like nodes on a map, with the ability to travel between the different regions, and that includes the PvE and the PvP zones. I.e., you could base yourself in the PvE zone, but then can use relay posts to travel to the PvP servers. You might have better resources there, but you are going to get stuck there for an hour because of the cooldown timer, and you're obviously in a full PvP environment, and anyone or any group can come and hunt you down. But for me, so far, I've only been able to spend about 10 hours in the game, which really hardly scratches the surface, which is why this is just a first impression video. I want to get stuck into some more of the arena fights, much more of the PvP combat, the larger siege events, all of which go to make up a huge part of this game that I just haven't really been able to properly explore yet, and we'll hopefully be exploring some more of these features in later videos. But for now, I just wanted to get out my first impressions, my first 10 hours in the game, and what I've been enjoying and what I haven't. And all of this kind of leads actually to my first main point. Previously I'd been comparing this game to Conqueror's Blade, or at least in part, but so far my experience, while still hugely positive, is actually very different from this. It is much more of a survival MMO, much closer to something like Last Oasis, Rust, Conan Exiles, insert your survival MMO of choice here, and it's much similar to that than it is sort of the instance-based battle game that is Conqueror's Blade, because this you're going to be thrown in with absolutely nothing but a loincloth, and you're going to be out there gathering some grass. And that was my main introduction into the game, trying to explore and figure out the crafting system, along with the pretty extensive technology tree, which, let's face it, can actually seem like a little bit of a mind bender at first, but it's actually really nicely laid out and allows you to unlock a pretty big range of tools, weapons, buildings, walls and other equipment within your first few hours of the game. Well, that was after I had noticed I was starving to death, the sun set so I couldn't see anything, and I managed to walk into every tree in southern China. But it is, after all, a survival game, so it's perhaps not that surprising that you need to nourish yourself. But before I knew it, I'd respawned and I was back on track, and I was soon constructing my own base. The quest line led me through building and placing the different crafting benches, and before I knew it, I'd expanded my base into a little 2-story manor house. Evo Towers, I named it. I did, however, find some of the material gathering a little bit too much of a grind. I chopped enough trees to deforest a small country, and actually managed to get so many trees cut down that I gained a talent level in woodcutting. I also found some resources, such as hemp, were really difficult to get early on, and required sort of hours of bush harvesting to get enough to be able to make any cloth. And I know survival MMOs are always going to be quite grindy. I mean, that's partly the point. It is a survival after all, but I wouldn't mind slightly increased drop rates for some of the resources, particularly hemp. Please, I don't want to gather any more bushes. But once through that initial setup grind, things really started to get more interesting. I managed to recruit my first subject, who, quite frankly, has the best facial expression I have ever seen before in a game. It's amazing. I got him equipped out though, in a spare set of bronze armor I had lying around, and I put him to work on one of my crafting benches. Because units in this game aren't like in Conqueror's Blade, they're not just soldiers, but they're also workers, crafters, farmers. They take up some of the more laborious jobs that you're normally going to be doing, and this makes them a really key part of your development. And it feels like it's actually a system that's been implemented pretty well, and I actually quite enjoyed making use of some of the workers. Another feature that I really enjoyed was the horse taming. I've not really seen a game before that tried to make such use of a feature like this. You have to carefully coax the hawks in with fodder before jumping on and playing a sort of mini game of buckaroo, in which the horse leads you on this merry dance around the countryside, terrifying all the wildlife. But if you manage to hang on, you eventually get to tame the horse and keep it as a permanent steed, which, given some of the distances involved in travelling, is certainly a pretty useful addition. And I was pretty proud to name him Dave, a very fitting name for a horse. But beyond the intricacies of the various in-game features, I'm really quite impressed with how the game actually looks graphically. I hope it comes across well enough on the YouTube video, but actually the game has some really impressive visuals. And whilst this is obviously not the only thing matters, it does show how much time and effort the devs have been putting into this game. I'd also add that over the last 10 hours that I've been playing, I so far haven't had any crashes or any game-breaking bugs, which I think is really a good sign, given that this is still very much in early alpha, and the fact that there's not really encountered many bugs is a good sign that we've got a pretty decent base game. The UI is, however, an area that does still need some work. It's not particularly visually appealing, and sometimes it just feels a little bit clunky, if I guess at least functional. Although it does seem to have this rather dangerous drop all button right in between the sort and individual item drop button. I mean, who would be stupid enough to accidentally misclick that one, right? Right? I also think some of the character sounds need to be polished just a little bit more. Chopping trees for a while does get slightly irritating when your guy keeps making the same grunting sounds over and over. But I guess we are still in early alpha, and the few problems that we've had aside, my initial impressions of the game have actually been really good. I can't wait to explore some more of the combat side of things, which we will certainly be covering in another video. I also think the game will be significantly more fun if you're running with a group of friends or a guild. The game has a pretty well developed guild system, which can place down guild territory. It has its own guild specific tech tree and buildings, all of which can sort of help foster that player cooperation. And with the skills development tree, players will be able to focus their skills and their character towards specific endgame targets. So guilds may have characters focused towards blacksmiths, builders, stable hands, all of which goes to make this much more fun and cooperative environment. But that's really all I wanted to cover in this video after all. It is, after all, just my initial impressions. But certainly a pretty impressive start, and despite running solo, honestly, been a really enjoyable time so far playing the game. I'd also love to know what you guys think about the footage you've seen so far. Excited to see where this game goes, or is it just not really quite what you were expecting? But either way, do let me know in the comments down below. And if you did enjoy the video, do please think about giving it a like, and of course subscribe to the channel for lots more medieval gaming content. Thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you all on the next one.